me on. Bring out the tomatoes. There we go. Hey, welcome everybody. It is now another great day. Always a great day. How do you start your day? Well, you start your day off on a positive note, I'm sure, right? You get yourself excited, you get yourself energized. How do you start a conversation? Also energized, but how do you make that conversation work when you're presenting yourself at a networking event, when you're meeting somebody for the first time at a party, when you're meeting somebody for the first time at some sort of a business event? But that would be, of course, your elevator pitch, that intro, that first impression. How important is it? It's everything. It's absolutely everything. Today's guest, we're going to talk about that elevator pitch, but it goes beyond that too, because what if you have a product that actually talks for you, or a service that talks for you, or you're letting your website talk for you? All of this stuff filters into it. And I'm very, very big on that elevator pitch because that, I think, is the basic understanding of where you want to go. And the better you can explain where you are now and what you are looking for from different people, well, then the clearer I think your business plan is, the clearer your marketing plan is. And from a time management standpoint, you get it also. It just focuses you in that much more. So who's our guest? Well, not only does he speak about creating that elevator pitch, not only does he have a background about product, correct product, making sure the product makes sense, pricing, distribution, everything like that. He brings over 25 years of business experience that has given him a very, very well-rounded background to allow him now to work on that sales and coaching aspect of it. And what's the biggest thing that falls into it? Two things. One, he's authentic, he's credible, and let's go with the other thing. He's a great listener. Ladies and gentlemen, may I introduce to you the one, the only, Glenn Rudin. All right, Glenn, this show's yours. That was a long elevator pitch. I apologize.
But I enjoyed it, and I love the fact that you're pointing all these things out to the viewers and people who are going to hear this down the road, because it's all about intentionality, right, Brian? If you are just showing up and what I call winging it and hoping for the best, you're probably not going to get the best, and you're certainly not going to get the best reaction from your audience, your potential customers, and things like that. It really is all about being intentional, about thinking about these things long before you get on that virtual call, long before you even get on a phone call, way before you go to some networking event. You've really got to take the time out to sit down and be intentional about who you are. I loved your intro, and I love the way that you get everybody thinking about these things, because I find in my travels, most people don't spend a whole lot of time thinking about it. And then it becomes really obvious when we actually witness the performances that they put on in front of us.
Yeah, absolutely. And so much, over the years, the same with you, right? It's those years worth of experience. So what do you run across? Maybe some, issues that, we've all had along the way, some of those learning moments, not failures. We have learning moments, but then listening to other people too. And then hearing other people, especially with the networking events, right? It was like, oh yeah, who do you want to meet? Everybody. No, you don't. Who's your perfect client? Everybody. No, it's not. It just is not. Everybody falls into different categories as that goes along. And even a time management standpoint, the reason why I reference that too is that if you think that going to every event, every business event, every networking event, that's around your area is the answer to it, the answer to that is no. Then you just get seen, talking about that image, that's just someone who goes to all these events all the time. It's like, that's all you do. And it can't be. So that's where the clarity from within, I think, really helps out in all of these things. And it's a much more pointed conversation when you're having with somebody, when they ask, how's it going? What are you doing? What are you up to? You got something to say?
Right. And as you said, again, that too is about intentionality. Who are you hoping to meet? Because if you are going to meet everybody, you're probably not going to meet anybody. And it just makes it that much more difficult for you to figure out exactly what you're going to say if you're not really sure about who's even going to be where you're going. So all of those things matter. And, again, I did one of my would you do business with you seminars at one of the big Long Island networking groups. This goes back 4 or 5 years. And informally, there were 25, 30 people sitting around, that horseshoe table, that typical, we can all imagine in our minds what that networking meeting, chamber of commerce meeting looks like. And it doesn't matter if it's some office building, some basement, shared space, some diner, a restaurant, regardless of where you are, you're sitting around that horseshoe, eventually that the call is going to come to you to do your elevator pitch. And, I just asked informally before my presentation, how many people you knew you were coming here today? You're going to be working with a guy that's an expert on pitch and branding and messaging. Show of hands. How many people actually worked on their pitch before they showed up today? Look around, scan around the room. And then finally, one guy raises his hand and he says, I was actually working on it in the car on my way over today.
It's something.
Yeah. And I said, well, that sounds really good commercial for distracted driving. I applaud you at least because you gave it, 5 minutes worth of thought before you showed up. But for the rest of you, if you're just leaving this to chance, and of course, we went around the room. And, Brian, I always say that in all my travels over the last 5-6 years, networking all over Long Island and in the New York area, going to trade shows around the US and around the world, that 90% of the people that I come in contact with, that I endeavor to meet, whether they've got a booth, they're just walking around at the show, they're at a networking group, they're doing some kind of presentation, or they're just there for networking, 90%, 9 out of 10 people struggle with some portion, at least some portion of their message, their branding, or if not the entire package of elevator pitch and branding and messaging. 9 out of 10. Very rarely that as I'm sitting there, and I'm a keen observer of this because of what I do for a living, coaching people and running group classes on this and master classes. So I'm always really keenly looking and listening to what people are going to say when they do their pitches. And, I look around the room one after another, a fail for this reason, a fail for that reason. And most of them do come down to lack of preparation, lack of focus, or people don't really even understand what it is they're trying to accomplish with their businesses, their products, their services. And
Right.
all of those funnel into this overall percentage, 9 out of 10 people. The good news is if you're in that percent, chances are you are, and you know who I'm speaking to when you hear this. We can get that fixed. But it will not happen just by you saying, I'm going to just try harder next time. That's just not enough. It has to be intentional and it has to be prepared. So I don't want to take up all the airtime here with that. But if you are amongst that 90%, I know you can do better. There's no doubt in my mind. I've seen the transformation over and over again once I get the opportunity to work with people and really get them to understand the basics, why this is so important, and then really being intentional about how they're going to go about improving their effort. So the next time they do show up, it is really much, much better.
Right. And that goes into why I call the show, what it is about those opportunities. We got to see it. But sometimes, it's the challenges that we face that really create the opportunity because we become much more aware of it. So just to finish that up, you go to a trade show and your results were not too good. The question is why? And if you could practice those listening skills, maybe give you a call, also really go back and figure out why. Unclear message, very much so. Not providing what the true value is, very much so. Also, all these things factor into it. That's why I'm so excited to have you on today because you get it, man. You just fully get it. Now, your background, you have 25 years in business. It was more product centric in the past, right? Now you've moved over a little bit more on the messaging and the coaching, or
well, so here's where the
way.
pivot really happened. I've been doing product development now for 25 years, and I've worked for companies like Revlon, the big cosmetic giant, Shiseido, the international cosmetic giant. Worked on the Elizabeth Taylor Passion fragrance way back when. I've worked on toys. I've worked on novelty items. When the Universal theme parks opened their Islands of Adventure, my company produced probably close to 400 different branded items for them. So I come from that consumer packaged goods, CPG background. And yeah, the one thing that you get to know when you're in that space is, look, you're going to have, a bottle or a package of some kind, and, it gets a little label, it gets some branding on it, and then, we've got to stick it on a shelf someplace. It doesn't really have the opportunity to speak for itself other than that label. So the big difference for us as people is we don't get stuck on a shelf, right? We're moving, we're constantly in motion, going to different things. And we can actually change our labeling, right? That comes down to your wardrobe. That comes down to the way you present yourself. So about 5 or 6 years ago, somebody recommended to me that I start going to networking groups to see if other people were looking to get involved in, hey, I've got a great idea for a product. Maybe Glenn can help me produce it. And what I realized after I'd gone to about a half a dozen meetings was that all of these people are their own products, and they've all got to be packaged and marketed. And the difference between them and like this little guy that I held up is we can all speak for ourselves. So the question is, what are we doing to literally, jump off the shelf to people who are coming in contact with us, and start thinking, there's an opportunity here, because most people are not very good at packaging or presenting themselves. And so why don't I take the concepts from consumer packaged goods and apply those the same way that I would to people? And the big difference is, of course, we can be verbal, right? We can provide descriptions. I can give you a description of who I am and what I do, and you could read that on the air. Somebody could see that, and that's great. But I can also now, when I come in contact with you, say, this is really who I am, and really bring myself to life rather than just that black and white description. That's the big difference between, amongst others, between this and me from the standpoint of how I'm going to appear to you. So that's really where the transition came from, me working on copy and labels to figuring out elevator pitches and personal branding and, nonverbal messaging for people. And there is an art to it. There's no question about that. And the goal for me is to help everybody that I come in contact with to really take the time to figure out, how do I want to appear to anybody that is now coming in contact with me virtually on Zoom calls, Zoom networking calls, when I go to trade shows, when I'm in person and I go to my networking events. What is my packaging like? What is going to make somebody who I'm coming in contact with literally want to pick me up, look at my label, and hear what I have to say and decide that's a guy that I want to hear more from, or I really don't understand the message. It's not a package or a product that I'm interested in, and I'm just going to pass by that and go on to the next message I hear. Maybe that'll be one that resonates with me. And that is what happens at most of the meetings that I go to. People are unprepared to present themselves in the most professional way, forgetting now whether or not they've even done a good job figuring out how to say even the wrong things. They show up very often and their posture is not great. Their vibe is not very good. There's not a positive energy coming off of them. And all of those things are what attract us to want to have a further interaction with somebody or just leave it behind.
It's so correct. I actually would much rather talk to somebody who's enthusiastic that doesn't get it than somebody who completely gets it and is just going through the motions. It's just so much more rewarding. It's fun. You could see the excitement in their eyes, and the rest of it can be learned, guided, coached through. So yeah, that certainly is incredibly important. The body language kind of a thing, which maybe Zoom kind of makes that a little bit more challenging, but it's still there. So folks, don't think that you're on Zoom, you get away with body language. You absolutely need to be a little bit more, maybe even pronounced, with it, if doing these Zoom meetings. So, so you gone from packaging products to people. Definitely more challenging on the people side because everybody's different and you have different levels of confidence that come up with that too. If you've got a product on the shelf, it's not emotional. It just is what it is. But somebody who doesn't really have the confidence to go and speak, how important is that when it comes to what you're doing? And then also with the seminar that you've got coming up, is that a factor in there?
Oh, listen, absolutely. If you don't show up and project a level of confidence to people, they sense that and they start to get the idea. I'm not really sure that you believe what you're saying yourself. And we all know that the whole buying pattern comes down to that knowing, liking, and trusting. And if you're shrinking away from people, if you're not projecting a positive vibe about you and about what you're doing, if you come across bored, if you come across unsure, if you come across not in command of the facts that you need to about what you're doing, you can imagine what's going on in the backs of people's minds. And it all starts, let's just say this, it all starts with how you look, how you're showing up. People who have gotten really comfortable with the too casual look, and that also starts to immediately project an image in our minds that says, this person is just not, in my mind, is just not really ready. They're not filling what I would expect to see from somebody in this space. So here's a great way to think about this, in terms of confidence, right? Think about if we were going to create a movie and we were going to find somebody to play you in your role. And what is the role that you're going to be playing today? So, if you're an accountant, if you're a real estate agent, if you are a financial advisor, if you're a marketing and branding person, how would that person appear on screen? What actor would be playing you? What would that role be like? How would that person be portrayed in that movie? Because in essence, this is the role that you are playing when you step into that networking meeting, when you step into that seminar, when you step into that trade show. You have got to be that character for the time you're there. And when you're out of character, now we're looking at it, and you can imagine, if we said, just to wrap this up, I need someone who looks like an accountant who's going to play that role. Well, in our mind, we're probably thinking somebody who's dressed conservatively and, and looks somewhat official. They're in some kind of a business suit, something that shows some authority. But if that person in the movie was wearing, a New York Mets baseball shirt and wearing their cap on backward, but they started speaking about being, in the financial advice business, we'd probably be thinking, wait a minute, there's something wrong here, right? This person looks like they're really cast to be, in an Adam Sandler movie, something funny, going to a game. It's not somebody that I really want to be listening to for financial advice. Well, when you start seeing the way people dress up super casually, before they even get to do their elevator pitch, before they even get to say hello, in as little as a few seconds, we already start looking them up and down. It's what we do as human beings, Brian. And we start evaluating, is this somebody that I really want to listen to? And then when someone starts speaking, now does the whole package come together, create continuity and synergy? Or is it a big miss because the person appears one way, speaks another way, it creates all kinds of confusion. And that all happens before we even get to hear what that pitch is all about. So confidence for sure, if you can't project that, and enthusiasm for sure. If you're not excited about it, why would we be? So at the seminar that I'm doing, the live seminar next week for the Syosset and Woodbury Chamber of Commerce, that's on Thursday morning, 7 a.m. And we can get you the links for that if you want to show up live and hear me speak. I'll be doing a half-hour presentation there called Power Up Your Pitch. The night before, I think, is the one that you were speaking about, my masterclass, which is the 8-step pitch like a pro, turn your listeners into leads. And I will go through the 8 steps. And of course, one of them is your appearance and how you appear to us in the world. So that's a virtual one, and that goes on 6 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time on Wednesday, this Wednesday, the 14th. And there are still some seats available for that masterclass. And we'll take you through the 8 steps of learning how to pitch like a pro and literally turning the people who hear you into leads, as opposed to people who walk away confused and don't really know what you're speaking about.
Right. That's where it all comes down to. You have to know clearly before you go to an event, or a business event, whatever it might be, trade show, why you're there. Just flat out, why are you there? Is it to get leads? Is it to get customers? What's the message being delivered? I so unbelievably agree with you. And I could give you countless examples of stuff that I've run across, including some of my own errors along the way too. I was that guy that went to every event because, the more the merrier. No, absolutely not. It doesn't work that way. But so much of this comes down to first impression. And maybe that first impression is not your impression of me, my impression of you, but it's my impression of me. Of me. How do I start myself off? Am I putting on the right clothes? Am I giving, the right look? Do I have my business cards together and whatever other notes, even the website, the rest of that? Do I have the confidence to go out there and talk my talk and understand whatever that value add is, that one provides? And, you helping people get clarity on that, I think it's invaluable. I can't imagine these companies spending thousands of dollars going to trade shows, and it's a convoluted message that the different booth personnel are delivering. And even if, you get the higher executives coming over, it's like, they got to know. And if you're working with people that they are the business, it's everything. It really is everything, that enthusiasm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So true. And, people, here's another big mistake that people make. Look, when we first come in contact with you, even if we've met you once or twice before at other meetings, but more the case because we're speaking about now initial impressions, we're not buying anything from you, right? There are very few people that we're going to come in contact with in our life and just plink down the money. So in the back of my mind, I'm thinking right now, like the ice cream man. I've never met him before, but I know what he's doing, and I know I want what he's got. He doesn't really have to pitch me. I hear the bells, and I know there's some ice cream involved. Hey, that's going to be something I want. But a lot of other people, Brian, who are not the ice cream man, make the mistake of thinking today, I'm going to do such a great job with my pitch. I'm going to pack so much stuff into this 30 seconds. Yeah, it might stretch out to a minute and a half or 5 minutes, but it's going to be so damn impressive with all these big college words that everybody in the room is going to line up right after I do this, and they're going to buy exactly what I'm selling. And it's a huge, huge miss. And what I try to say to people is, look, temper your expectations so that when you show up at one of these meetings, if you do a great job with your pitch, remember, most of the people there potentially are not customers of yours. But if you do a really good job, people might know somebody who is a customer of yours. And so if 3 or 4 people resonate with what you're saying, now you're on the right track. Now you're on the right track. Those are people who got a sense for what you're speaking about, thought about it, and said, oh, wow, what Brian just had to say, what Glenn just had to say, that sounds interesting. Let me follow up with him or her, afterward and get a little more information. But don't make the mistake of thinking that you're actually going to be selling when you're there. And I've even noticed this transformation at trade shows. Years ago in the toy business, we'd go to the toy fair and we'd actually be able to do a really good job. And somebody might actually plink down, $100 or $500 for some package we were selling at the show. But that has now changed over the years also. And everybody is in that mode of, can I take a little more information, go back, and I'll evaluate whether or not I want to do that. And so really it still comes down to, in that 30 seconds, you're just trying to create enough interest for a follow-up conversation. Forget the selling. Be enthusiastic about what you're doing and just create enough interest so someone's leaning in and they like what you had to say. It sounded interesting and they want a little more information. That's when you can really pull somebody in, start doing a little more extended storytelling. And it's one of the big mistakes people make at trade shows. You can't do a 30-second pitch when somebody's walking by you at a trade show. You've got to have what I call little 10-second, 5-second grabbers. Hey, did you ever think about, is this something that you might, those are the ways that you get somebody, oh, yeah, that sounds interesting. Let me hear some more.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a big crossover with so much of this stuff. Obviously, with the elevator pitches you're talking about over there, obviously, if you're sitting at a business event and you're not delivering an elevator pitch per se, but you're sharing what your story is and the rest of that. But if you're getting on stage, and obviously you do get on stage giving presentations, it's that first opening couple of minutes that you're looking to bring the audience in, where they want to get and stay engaged with you as you continue on with your presentation. Slightly different format, but it's still the same thing. If you're not getting people's attention right off the bat, you're done. And if they're walking past you at a trade show, you might not even get the chance to go and do that, or with websites and everything like that. Hey, Glenn, I really appreciate you joining in over here. So you got those 2 events coming up. They could obviously go to your website. You got all that information there.
Oh, yeah. Alwaysbeencreative.com. Just spell it out like that. And there's a link where you can get information on my masterclass. You can book a 30-minute call with me and talk about your message, your pitch, or your strategy. That's all at alwaysbeencreative.com. And I'm constantly posting about these topics that I'm so passionate about on my LinkedIn, which is Glenn with 2 N's _Rudin _message _master, or just simply Glenn with 2 N's RUDIN on LinkedIn. And you can find me there, and I will always write back to whoever writes to me, whoever takes the time to get in touch with me. I'm super passionate about helping people, and I hate to see people struggle with something that we can all overcome. For some people, it's a bit easier. For some, it's harder. But I'm out there to try to help every person I come in contact with overcome this fear of speaking, overcome this lack of clarity, overcome this fear of not knowing what they're doing when it comes to pitching and presenting themselves. And I enjoy it, and hopefully that comes across in the way that I speak about it with people like you.
Oh, it definitely does. Body language, all the rest of that kind of stuff, as you've been talking about. You'll live that one too. And again, thanks. And then, folks, I strongly suggest go over to the website, LinkedIn page. We'll put the links up for that one too. So, Glenn, have yourself an absolutely wonderful day. Enjoy giving those presentations, as I know you will. And I'm positive those folks are going to take away different actionable ideas at both, be it the seminar or the other presentation that you're giving for the other group. So thank you so much.
Listen, thank you. I'll give you one other place that people can go if they can pick up my book that was just released, A Brand in Your Hand. Whoop.
Nope, you still
lost that one.
Yep,
okay,
there
you go.
I am. It's this impression thing. I want to make sure we got you covered on that one. But you're good. Brand in your hand. And all that stuff's on the website, as well.
Excellent.
Good. Thank you very much, sir. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Brian. I really appreciate you and all the work you do out here for all of us speakers and people in the business community. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. It's a whole lot of fun what I do. Get a chance to meet people like Glenn and many others along the way. It comes to marketing. Obviously, I got a little bit more of a focus on marketing and providing value to folks, in a number of different manners, including some of those other projects, that I'm involved with. But no matter what it is, we all have challenges that we face, but we all have opportunities that are in front of us too. The question is, do we see these opportunities? And sometimes if we get a little too frustrated with those challenges that we face, we don't see what's possible beyond that. And Glenn had mentioned to me before we went live over that, it's like sometimes we're a little too close to ourselves, that we need an outside party to speak with us, to take a look at what we're doing. And maybe then that person will come up with different things that maybe we don't see, maybe our own value we don't see. So coaching, mentoring, all the rest of that stuff is really super, super important. So reach out to Glenn. You want to work on your brand and the elevator pitch and a bunch of other little factors that go into it, you got to reach out to Glenn Rudin. So I want to thank you again for joining us here today. Love having Glenn on. You should reach out to him. You should get the confidence that you need, and you should be very clear on whatever value that you provide. And when you are, you will definitely speak well. You will speak often, and you will live inspired, and you will inspire other people to do exactly the same thing.